Hello, hello. Welcome to Upwork Academy. Today we're talking about how to spot fake jobs on Upwork, or really just any jobs that have been abandoned, no longer worth sending connects into. Has become a lot more AI focused, like a lot of other freelancing platforms. So it's getting more difficult to tell when language is veering off towards more AI or is it human. It's a little bit difficult to tell sometimes. There used to be language that was super easy to spot, and now that's no longer the case. So I want to give you some ideas of just how to spot these kinds of jobs on here. I'm looking at some web design based job listings here that are all in the less than 100 and 1 to 5K range. An indication of someone who's really a real person is always something that says, hey, I want you to put this in your proposal on Upwork. So this is a good example of this. Right here, it says something. Yeah, it actually says right here, when you apply, please put this in here. And a lot of clients will put something like, put your favorite ice cream, put pink elephant to just say that you read this description. Because a lot of times on Upwork, people are just not even reading the descriptions. They're just throwing a template together. Anything like this, where it's a name here, specs on how to apply, anything like this that's a little bit more human, asking you questions, making sure that you've read the actual job description. Those are all indications this is a little bit more of a human actually wrote this thing. You're going to see the same kind of language over and over again. So a lot of we are looking for, we are seeking, that kind of stuff. This line is always in there usually. If you are a blank, then we would love to blank. That is really just Upwork's actual onboarding process for when a client is creating a listing. It's usually taking what the client has actually written out. So they've typed it out, and then Upwork's system goes in and try and just molds it to their language. So that's why you're going to see that over and over and over again. Now, this is one of the most common Upwork scams out there. So if we see anything like this, where it says this is a long-term position with great benefits, they oftentimes will also put it for a very low fixed rate price. So just keep an eye out for that. Sometimes you'll see this language and you'll also see it with 5 to 10K as the budget or something like that, which is not impossible for Upwork. Sometimes you will get really high budgets like that on Upwork. It's just, this is more of a way to get you to open the listing rather than an actual indication they want to pay you that kind of budget. So sometimes it can be super low and they have this language, and sometimes it can be really, really, really out of control high, and it's really just a way to try and get you to open the listing. So just keep an eye out for that too. Another thing that sometimes people on here will do is they'll pop into your messaging center and they will say something like, hey, happy to do this particular job with you, but I want to do it all for free, or I want to do a test first. And as a rule, in my little world of freelancing, we are never doing tests just for the sake of doing tests. Even if you are trying to get reviews or anything like that, it is not worth your time. It is not worth the effort. A lot of times they're just trying to get free work out of you. And so what I want you to do is always come back with we're going to do a paid test. Doesn't have to be crazy money. It could be $25, it could be 15, it could be 50, it could be whatever you decide to do, but just make sure you put a paid test in there, then push for it and turn them down if they say no, because they're just trying to get free work out of you oftentimes. And the ones who are understanding and respectful of your time are going to be fine with paying 25 or 30 or whatever it is, just to have you in the options, right? So we want to just offer that to them and stand our ground when it comes up. Last thing I'll mention to you is jobs on here are manually closed by clients. So that means that sometimes a job listing will go on here, usually around the Friday mark or over the weekend especially. Clients will put those job listings on Upwork. They will get super excited about the prospect of having something happen, or they get a whole bunch of people and they just not quite what they're looking for, and so they abandon the listing. And so two things I want you to pay attention to. We want to look at, see, when was this posted? So this was posted 2 days ago. Upwork has, in my mind, a 24 to 48 hour window for hiring, and normally people stay within that. Sometimes they go outside of it. Let's pay attention to the 2-day mark, or posted yesterday, or it could be 3, 4, or 5 days ago, things like that. That if it's 3 or 4 days ago, We generally don't want to send anything into it. But let's just say for this 2 days ago one, let me look at this one. It doesn't really matter what it is. But if we look at when it was last viewed by the client, if it's still pretty active where they're looking at it an hour ago, 2 hours ago, 6 hours ago, things like that, where it's still pretty relevant, that would be an indication that it's still active to me. But if this said 5 days ago and I don't see any activity from the client, which is this little line here, this will go away if the client is still not, if the client is not looking at it, then that would be an indication that the job has been abandoned to me. So this was posted 2 months ago, and this is why it's really important to actually look at these listings closer, because this would be an indication already that this is not something that I want to send into. But let's just say I was looking at it and I didn't realize that this was so old on here. I would then look at the activity on the job. I would see 4 weeks ago. Okay, that's already tells me that somebody's probably already been hired for this, or it's no longer active. And in this case, somebody was hired. So that makes a lot of sense. So we want to do a little bit of research, pay attention to the language in here, look and see what makes sense. Does it sound human as much as it possibly can? Is there stuff in there that is talking about time frame stuff, is talking about what's really important to this particular client, all that kind of thing? Look at their reviews, look at what the budget is. Does it match their history of contracts? We want to make sure that this is within 48 hours. We want to look at the description and make sure it's lines up in terms of the logistics so that's nothing out of control. It's within the ballpark of a budget that we're looking for. We can always negotiate a little bit higher or less depending on where the client's at. We want to look at the contract history. Do they have a good reputation, generally speaking? Do they have a history of paying people pretty close or above what they're currently offering you? And then activity, we wanted to see, are they currently looking at the job listing? Are they interviewing people? All that stuff, so that we can actually make a really good, solid decision when we send a proposal in, because we don't want to be sending into something that has a lot of red flags and is so obviously been abandoned or anything like that, because those are the things that can make it really tough to get seen on Upwork and actually have some success getting contracts and landing stuff on here. So that is how to avoid some of the red flag stuff and some of the fake scam jobs. But as soon as you know what they look like, you can really quickly identify them and then just never have to deal with them for the most part. It is more of a skill that needs to be honed over time. So don't worry if you run into one or have anything like that where somebody's asking you to go off of Upwork or anything like that. Anything on the breaking terms of service stuff is just a big no-no. We don't want to be doing any stuff like that. So just don't worry about it. It will come with time. So I will put a video on screen for you about how to create filters on Upwork so that you can avoid a lot of these jobs and filter down into stuff that's in your budget range and not too competitive so that you can actually get seen by clients. And I will see you guys in the next one.